Main Street Media, Utah. Looking forward to being with you here to this fine day, right here on Main Street Media and KMMU. Looking forward to being here with you for the next roughly 2 hours. I'm going to be having two great guests that will be joining me today. I'm going to be having Lowell Nelson of the Highland Meeting Group join me, hopefully momentarily. And then a little bit later, I will be having Michael Letts of Invest USA join us. And also, I'll be covering. So, what are we going to be covering on today's show? We're going to be talking about the Highland Meeting Group, who they are, who they've had on over the last year. And I'm going to let Lowell Nelson, who is kind of the main guy at the Highland Meeting Group, share with us about that. Then also, we're going to have Michael Letts a little bit later join us of Invest USA. We're going to be talking about all of Biden's recent wonderfulness, as well as Donald Trump's picks, where Michael thinks things may be going here in the near future, and what it looks like. But first, let's get this show off to a proper start. What do you say? As I shared, this is Main Street Media Utah, and I'm looking forward to being with you here for the next 2 hours. You can find us on mainstreetmediautah.com. You can also go to our channels on YouTube, on Rumble, as well as just to our website. And hopefully we'll be getting on YouTube, ugetube.com. Hopefully that'll be happening sometime soon. We'll see what happens. But we're here about freedom and liberty. And that's what this show in general is about. So I am your host, John of Talk with John, here Tuesdays, typically from 4 to 6. You can join us and interact with me. Today, we will be able to take some phone calls. The number is there on your screen, should you be listening live. Also, I want to real quickly give out my show prayer and my show mantra. Now, my show prayer, no need to bow your head, close your eyes. It's the prayer of my heart. So let me give out the show prayer first. I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra. Where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. And that's in general kind of my overall focus, thought process, as it were, when it comes to doing this show. Is really liberty is very important to me. What is liberty? Liberty is the spiritual side, the action side of freedom. If you don't act upon it, you won't have it. So let's be clear on that. So want to get back. So get a couple of topics that we're going to be hitting is we're definitely going to talk a little bit about the prospect of war. We're going to be getting into that. And looks like Lowell is just on his way in right now. We're going to go over a little bit of Trump's nominations. We'll see some of the current ones, some of the old ones. I'm going to mention some of the people that we'll just go over that with and very carefully. Well, maybe not carefully. Carefully is probably not the best way to put it, but we'll go over it with Michael Letts, and we'll get his prospects or his thoughts, the prospects on how well this is going to wind up turning out, and everything along those lines. So, Dwayne, if you would do me a favor and put in chat all the different places that we're on, I want to make sure that I get that. Also, folks, you can feel free to tune in live or give us a call if you'd like. We will be taking calls, and I'll be taking calls with both guests. Also, I will be paying attention to chat, at least from time to time, and see if I can answer any questions that you may have. But looking forward to being here today and looking forward to being with you. Now, real quickly, I hope you all will forgive me. I am not going to be here. Let's see. Let me pull out my calculator. Not my calculator. Let me pull out my calendar. It's on the same thing. It's on my phone. It's all on our phones, right? Calendar, calculator, all that stuff is on the phone. So I will not be doing my show either on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. Hopefully, we can do a best of some best of on those dates. But Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, forgive me. Uh, I don't want to get hung. Yeah, it's holiday time, as Dwayne just put up. So you are listening to us on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We are live on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Go to our website, kmmu.org. So I want to be talking when as soon as Lowell gets on, and he said putting everything together. And Dwayne, if you can type in chat, you're able to see when Lowell joins us. If I remember correctly. Now it's been, man, I want to say it's been a couple months since I've had Dwayne join me, but it's been a while. He said he'll let me know. Okay, so as soon as he lets me know, that'll be fantastic. And Lowell, I'm going to I'm going to type excellent to Lowell to respond to him. Now, who are some of the best picks? Tom Homan, Kash Patel, and real quickly, the call-in line is 385-899-2134. That's 385-899-2134. Our call screener is lonely and anxious and awaiting your calls. So hopefully feel free to call in and we'll have the opportunity to interact with you. I'd love to hear your folks' comments on who you think is the best, who you think is some of Trump's best selections. And also, and Lowell said, still putting everything together. Lowell, I think you've got, excuse me, Dwayne, I think you've got Lowell's phone number. I don't know if you want to give him a call and see what you can do to help him out, but he may be having a little bit of a struggle. Who knows? But he has, in quotes, putting everything together. Something tells me that has to do with our system. That's what we see. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate you doing that. Dwayne just said, I'll check in with him. Fantastic. All right. So here are a couple of them that I'm really concerned about. A couple that worry me. Dr. Oz. I am worried about Dr. Oz, as well as I am worried about his pick for Surgeon General. Trying to get, I know that I'm going to just murder her name. Dr. Janet Neshiwat. Almost kind of has a Japanese type sound to it, or Chinese sounds to it, or Asian sound. Unfortunately, I'm going to risk being a little racist, but it doesn't exactly sound English, shall we say. And obviously, I could be wrong, but definitely not Welsh. Let me tell you that. I'm like 99.9% certain that Nishiwat is not a Welsh name. So I'm concerned about a couple of his picks because, and what I've had a few people share with me is that they think Donald Trump might be getting the pros and the cons. So those that are for injections, for lockdowns, so Dr. Oz is famously for vaccinations. He wasn't opposed to lockdowns. His Dr. Janet Nishiwat, who is the Surgeon General pick for Donald Trump, she wasn't against the jabs, the boosters, masks, and lockdowns. Me, I'm completely against those things. From the very beginning, I'm like, this is not making any sense. Thank you for working on that, Dwayne, with Lowell. Hopefully, you can get that taken care of, and Lowell can join us. So, the bottom line is, those picks I'm really concerned. Those are two picks that I'm concerned about. There's some others that concern me, but then on the flip side, another thing that concerns me is him going away from Matt Gaetz. I look forward to talking to Michael Letts on this one. Did Matt completely step down on his own, or did the people around Trump and Trump somewhat say, Matt, it's just not going to work out. We're going to move on. Matt Gaetz would have been awesome.
I'm gonna add my 2 cents to this, John. I'm not 100% sure what went on with Matt Gaetz, but I hear rumors, from all of the people that I listen to, that it might have been just a honeypot. They were fishing to see who would be opposed to him, and they're going to move him somewhere else. He's my hero. I love Matt Gaetz. So
I was going to bring that. You are right. I think that. So there was a little, is it 3D chess? But Matt Gaetz. So one of the things about Matt Gaetz is there is a video, and I can't remember if he did it with, who was it that he did? But he went with a reporter.
Walking down the halls of Congress.
Walking down the halls of Congress.
And pointing out people's doors and saying, this guy's, he has a lot of enemies. He has enemies. So.
Yes. And let me put it this way. Every single one of those doors, if I remember correctly, that it points out, this guy's got this guy is a problem, this guy is a problem. I believe every single one of those doors was Republicans.
Yes, he's shining a light.
You want to know why John Curtis didn't want to vote for him? You know why the Senate leader to be didn't want him in? Because they know that Matt Gaetz was a guy that would be willing to say, I'm going to run roughshod over you. Bottom line is, as Rush Limbaugh called him, Cocaine Mitch.
Yeah.
And Mitch McConnell, who has some very close familiar ties with those that are connected to China who have lots of money. Something tells me maybe a few things might have come out that might have not been too great for Mitch McConnell.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of guys there, and a lot of them are a little crooked.
Okay.
Some of them a lot crooked. Okay.
Well, I'm going to bring in the great Lowell Nelson.
Lowell is here.
So Lowell is here. Lowell Nelson, and I say the great Lowell Nelson. Now, folks.
I'm going to go back to my lonely call screening, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dwayne. Lowell Nelson, good to see you, brother.
Hey, good to be on. Thanks for having me on. I was just texting with Dwayne in the background there.
I'll say hello to you too, Lowell.
Awesome.
Happy
Always
Tuesday.
Good to say hi to you, Dwayne. You have a perpetual smile on your mouth with your good, nice-looking mustache.
Dwayne does have an awesome
I'm going to let you guys talk.
Okay.
So forgive me. So one thing we don't have running is commercials, and nobody wants to see me scratch my head. So, no one wants to see that. So I turned off the camera for just a minute. So Lowell Nelson, for those of you that don't know, I've known Lowell Nelson for, over 5 years. And we've had a lot of fun together over those 5 years. So how did I come to meet Lowell Nelson? So I knew of Lowell Nelson. Lowell Nelson had no idea who Talk with John was up until he showed up one day at the K-Talk studios. He was told that some schmuck by the name of Talk with John is going to be coming on and going to be having a show following his. And so he had this ugly schmuck show up, but Lowell Nelson was so warm and inviting from the very first day, regardless of how much, and as we say in Utah, irregardless of how much, how much of a detestable person I was. He always made me feel warm and welcome. So, Lowell Nelson is a complete patriot, a fighter. He's been a lot of different things. One of the things that he's doing right now is the Highland Meeting Group. That's what I'm bringing him on to talk about. But also, he does political training, political candidate training, political, and so why don't you tell us the name of both of those things? But Highland Meeting Group in general, they meet the first Friday of every month. They're not doing it this month, and they also take a hiatus. If I remember, they take a hiatus of July and August. But he's had nationally well-known speakers come to this. Joel. I almost said Joel Oglestein. Joel Skousen. It comes usually once a year. Normally, he is the first December Friday, but because he was running for the presidency's presidential office, he came a little early and spoke to the Highland Meeting Group. That happened to be on a night that I had a football game for a son in high school. So, Lowell, thank you for joining me, brother. Appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure, John. Yeah, you're awesome. I grew up way too serious. You know, people say people who know me really, really well know I'm pretty serious about everything. So I always appreciate good humor when it's around me, and so that's, of course, folks, one of the great reasons why John is such a great friend. He's full of humor, full of I don't know, just good fun and games. We have stories that go way back. We playing tricks on me, and it's just making life fun, keeping life energetic and fun. That's John for you. So I really appreciate John and his grasp of the radio world, because I think it's somebody like John who can be conversational about the issues and can make sense, of what's going on around him, and can even though has he knows what's right. He knows the proper role of government. He knows that government is in way things nowadays, and we as citizenry need to push that back. John mentioned a couple courses that I share. These I don't teach, but they're taught by the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership, which is an organization begun by Mike Rothfeld and Kirk Shelley. They run this organization. They go around the whole nation teaching the principles of good political activism. So they really have two schools. They call them these schools. The first school is political activism school, called a political leadership school. It's basically, activism 101. It's an all-day school, as is their second school. And so I engage and get people to sign up for these schools every year. People right here in Utah, people I trust, people who I want to be active in politics, because we want the shakers and the movers to have the right political bent, right political ideology, so that their efforts are not wasted, and we promote freedom and responsibility. We don't promote leftism and wokeism and all of those weird isms that seem to be pervading our society nowadays. About 20 years ago in Highland, there's a really great gentleman here named Thomas Butler, who began meeting in his home once a month with just some neighbors who are interested in politics, and some who are interested in and he soon outgrew his home. There's not enough room for everybody to fit in his home in front of his fireplace. And so he moved the meetings to the Highland Community Center, where we met for a number of years. It grew so popular that we moved it to the Scout office on 800 North, there just west of the freeway in Orem. That accommodated a couple of hundred people. And so it really grew and grew. And so about 5 years ago, Thomas Butler decided he needed a change of scenery. So he bequeathed his group upon Kristen Chevrier and me. And we've been co-hosting the group ever since. what we like to do is grow natural talent, local talent. Thomas was really good. He's kind of like John. He could get national talent. He could get, people like Michael Letts, this, who John's going to have on later this hour. He got Roger Stone. He brought Kate Dowley to the Highland meeting. As some of these by video transmission, not all of them in person, but he was really, really good at that. Whereas I like to grow local talent. So I have people like Otto Kraus, who understands ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, and how what a ploy, what a scam that is for all the states. So I like to reach out and find local talent, people who are just run-of-the-mill, common people like you and me, who have special knowledge, have a deep knowledge about a subject, and then they can come and share it. John, one of the funnest Highland meetings we've ever had was Caleb Warnock. He just lives up the road here from me, I don't know, 5 or 10 blocks, and he knows gardening, how to garden in Utah, how to grow a plant in this desert we call home. And boy, talk about fun. He is a jokester too. He's such a great sense of humor. He is one of our fan favorites. We've probably had him 2 or 3 times to the Highland meeting because he is so fun and people in stitches. I mean, you'd want to come just to listen to him crack jokes, John. Whether you learned anything about gardening or not, you'd want to listen to Caleb Warnock because he is a hoot.
Well, maybe we can figure out a way to get him on Talk with John, and we can maybe have someone holding the camera, and we can go out to Talk with John's garden, because I've got a 5 by 60 square foot area that we're really awesome at growing weeds. This year, we hardly grew anything else. Oh man, it's a challenge.
John, I know exactly what you mean. We grow weeds too here in my garden, but they're good weeds. Good weeds, not meaning like not CBD type weeds, THC type weeds. I'm talking about herbs that really do a body good. Like clover and alfalfa and mint.
Well, there's plenty of people that say herbs are pretty awesome. So,
well. So that was kind of the genesis of the Highland meeting, and you asked me to just talk a little bit about how it got started and why we continue to promote it. We still promote it. I mean, I had Gabriella Puckett, a wonderful young woman who grew up in communist China. I'm sorry, communist Cuba. She came and talked about life in communist Cuba, what she had and what she didn't have. And I guarantee you, John, what she didn't have far outweighed what she had. She was a skinny rail when she finally, got out of Cuba. And she wanted to talk about that because she's on a crusade helping the young people in our lives, the teenagers, the high schoolers, the young college students, the ones who have been indoctrinated over the past 5 or 10 years into believing that socialism is good and that capitalism is bad. And boy, did she blow that thing out of the water? It was awesome.
Let me guess. She also is, the students that believe that wearing masks is a good thing. She ought to help preach to them that, by the way, wearing masks is not so smart.
Boy, I'll say, yeah. I don't know what it was. I think she probably left Cuba about 3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't know if she was in Cuba during the COVID scamdemic or not. Anyway, she's married now. She has a baby, and she is charismatic. She's fun. She's energetic, and very convincing. Although she did admit that she went to a meeting up at the University of Utah it was a communist club. Anybody could join. If you wanted to be a communist student there on campus. And they were unconvinced. I mean, she tried to help them understand what life is really like under a communist dictator, and they wouldn't believe her. I mean, here she's lived it, and they would not believe her. She said, "Nah, that can't be true." communism is the way to go.
So let's see. Okay. So there's some people that could claim, here in the United States, we're not doing so awesome. Definitely not doing as awesome as we were back in the 80s. We weren't doing as far as from the standpoint, do we have a lot more technology? Awesome. But people are more disconnected and have more suicide. We have the ability to be more connected than we ever have in the history of the world. Yet people say when they fill out the forms on their own, they're less happy than they've ever been before, especially women are less happy than they've ever been before. And if you want to look at and see how communism has done much worse than the United States. And well, John, how would you measure that? Well, let's talk about the hundreds of millions of people that were killed by communism in the 1900s.
Yeah, that there's more people killed and buried by their own governments than ever by foreign governments, in foreign wars. Right. The dictators, the Pol Pots, the Hitlers, the Stalins of the world, they're the ones who Mao, 65 million we attribute to him. And I grew up thinking that Hitler was the last of the bad guys, right? The 1945 saw the end of the bad guys. We'll never have any more bad guys in the world.
Right.
And yet, look what we've got: Pol Pot in the 1980s, and I mean, it's crazy. And these people, they're blood power mongers, and once they get a foothold into your culture and convince you that you're free, even though you're not, then you're toast. And, we need to stop that from happening. One of the great things that happens, John, is we invite these people to come talk about their lives in former communist dictatorships, is that they're warning us, hey, this is happening right here, what happened 20 years ago in Cuba. And you got to speak up. You got to stand up. You got to stop this slide into socialism. Our speaker in January, John, right, I don't have a date for this yet, but he grew up in communist China, and he's going to tell us what life was like in communist China before he defected. And so that's going to be another riveting presentation, just like the last one by Gabriella. That we had in November. It's going to be fascinating to hear what life was really like behind the bamboo curtain, John. Anybody who wants to come to these Highland meetings may come. They're free to the public. We don't charge people to come.
He does ask for a donation, folks.
That's right.
Do a small donation. It's worth $5.
Yeah, and just that's to help pay for the rental of the venue. And it's not an expensive place. I mean, we rent. It's like, I don't know, 15 or 20 bucks an hour. So it's not that expensive. And so we do ask for a donation, but we welcome everybody who come. If you have a buck or two, toss it in the jar. But it's going to be great, John. So that's what's coming in January. We apologize for this month. There's just too much going on to make this month happen, the first Friday of every month, except for, July and August, like you said. We try to go 10 months out of the year. And so this Friday, we're recommending, and we're sending an email out probably this evening to everybody on our Highland Meeting email list that has a link to the video capture of that meeting. So if you missed Gabriella talk about Cuba, then you'll get a link, and it's a Rumble video. And so you just click the link and up comes Rumble, and you get to see the presentation that Gabriella gave to us on November 1st of this year. So that's what this email will be. It's a series of 12 links, John. And so I might just take a second to explain that. Gabriella, for November. Joel Skousen spoke to us in October this year, October 4th, because of his presidential campaign. And so he spoke to us in October instead of December. Otto Kraus, who I mentioned, knows Eric inside and out. Boy, he did a deep dive on September 6th. We got a link to his presentation. And then going all the way back to February of this year, we have caucus and delegate training. Remember, this was the year of the caucus in March of 2024. And so we provided training for caucus. If you want to be a caucus delegate for your precinct, to the delegate to the conventions, then we gave training on that. We, meaning Kristen Chevrier and I, talked about that. We also had a guest appearance of Carolyn Phippen that night. That was February 2nd. So you got a link to that presentation. And then we had 3 presentations right in a row, John. And for anybody who's interested in the situation in the Middle East or in Ukraine or with China, these 3 presentations really were a dynamite. We had David Pine, war in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. In November of 23, we had Joel Skousen talking about it in his December World Affairs Brief presentation on December 1. And we had Chris Herod talk about it. And Chris is married to a beautiful woman from Ukraine, has been for 20 years. He talked in January, on January 12th, about what the truth of what's going on over there, and also the abundant misinformation that we're pummeled with every day here in the States about Ukraine and Russia conflict. And so that triad of meetings was very interesting. That went right, one right after another. David Pine, then Joel Skousen, then Chris Herod. So if you missed any of those presentations, this will be your great opportunity to catch up. And I just might as well talk about the last 5 here on my list, if that's okay, John.
Absolutely.
Okay. Matt Jepson talked to us in May of 23. He was amazing. Just a common, ordinary fellow like you and me. Matt Jepson talked to us about food, water, fuel, and clothing. And he spent probably 20, 30 minutes on each of those 4 subjects. It says, if you can do these 4 things, you've got it made. And he's not talking, he had nothing to sell. And he's not pushing you out the door to go buy something. He says, why don't you collect the common, normal, everyday items that will help to preserve your life and make the quality of life worth living, if necessary, when the economy collapses. For example, you can collect rainwater in a bucket, right? Well, just think what you could do with a tarp. A big plastic tarp, a 10 by 10 tarp, or a 16 by 16 foot tarp, or a piece of plastic. You just roll that out on your lawn. The rain comes down, and you put up the edges of that tarp or that plastic. You can collect tremendous amount of rainwater with a simple piece of plastic. So anyway, really common sense. So Matt Jepson was awesome in May.
Did he even talk about getting tarps from billboards and stuff like that? Does he mention that?
Yeah, we did talk about that. And I have a great supply, a source of that, Reagan Signs. I bought tarps from them all during the summer of 2007 and the summer of 2011 when we were doing freeway blogging for Ron Paul. So the Reagan Outdoor Advertising, the company, still has those big tarps. They're 14 foot by 50 foot. They call them canvases. And we used to buy them for $20, John, an entire canvas for $20. Now they probably cost 50 or 60, but that was the cost back in 2007. In April of 23, John, we had David Christopher. This is the Dr. David Christopher, world-renowned naturalist, healer, herbalist. He came and spent the evening with us, taught us how to build a healthier you. Boy, if we need that information for sure, because if you're feeling sick, you're no good to the liberty movement. You're no good to the patriot community if you don't feel well.
How about this? I will disagree with you on that you are no good, but you're just not as good as you could be. How about that? Is that fair? Okay.
I'm well put. In March of that year, Dr. Kirk helping people avoid the mRNA injections right here in Utah, and he helped dozens and dozens of people avoid those the bad ones, the COVID shots, the kill shots, as I like to call them, the kill shots. And now Dr. Moore is, he's facing prison time because of the good turns that he did a lot of people in Utah. Just 2 more to go. Jen Dredge talked about water rights here in Utah. And in February of last...
So Dr. Moore, real quickly, is Dr. Moore the one that is doctor here in Utah that didn't necessarily hand out the jabs to everybody?
Yep, he is the one. Yeah. Well, I admire that gentleman. Such courage.
Okay, so I just got a notification. If we talk about the jab, apparently YouTube will cancel the stream. So you got to be careful on that one.
Oops. Okay. Well, water in Utah, water here in this desert state, that's very, very important. And Jen Dredge talked about that in February of last year. So that is, if you don't understand or have a glimpse yet of how important water is to us here in Utah, then you need to listen to Jen talk about that in her presentation. And finally, January of last year, this is January of 2023, Bob McEntee, he gave a presentation on the EMP task force, meaning, what we can do here in Utah to prepare for either an EMP strike from like a nuclear blast set off 60 miles above us, above the atmosphere, what that'll do to our electrical grid, or even the sun. If a natural burst of energy from the sun also could take down our electrical grid right here in Utah. And so we need to harden our grid. That's what the EMP task force is trying to do. We're trying to bring legislators on board and persuade them that we need to spend. It's not expensive.
It's like $1 billion
to harden.
I want to say it's $1 billion.
Yeah, $1 million.
Harden our entire grid.
It's millions, John. Not even $1 billion. We're talking like, I think you said 20 million, as in mama, million.
Wow.
And that's a drop in the bucket compared to our $29 billion budget here in Utah. So it's really something we have to do.
So I was saying nationally, it's like $1 billion.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
So you're talking about Utah, it's $29 million. 20 million. We should do that in a heartbeat.
And
it's like, oh, John and Lowell, you're both conspiracy theory guys. You're both up in the night. You don't need to worry about this. Look, it's possible. Okay, so I'll give it to you. Let's say that we never have Russia or China launch an EMP strike against us, which should we ever go to nuclear war, that is both of them, that is the first thing they do is launch an EMP strike. But guess what? We have mass coronal ejections that happen from the sun, like happened back in the 1800s. I mean,
1859, I think.
Yeah. It fried the wires of the telegraph. If we were to have that same thing happen, our whole grid would go down. We would become overnight. We'd have everything get fried, and we back to horse and buggy.
Yeah, one of the things Bob taught us was
$29 million here in Utah stops that, folks. To me, that's a no-brainer.
That's a no-brainer. One of the things that Bob was the fact that there are 3 grids in the U.S. today. Texas has their own, and then there's a western grid and an eastern grid. And so we are not hardened. Our grid is not hardened, but this $20 million that I mentioned to harden Utah's grid would actually provide for Utah against the downing of the western grid, the one that we're a part of, so that we could actually be insulated. So it might be the case that an EMP strike or a coronal mass ejection could take down the western grid, but here in Utah, we would still be up. I mean, that's worth $20 million, $25 million, $30 million, whatever it takes. That's worth it. We should be spending that money yesterday to get our grid secured.
I agree.
Well, that's the type of local talent that we like to reach out and grab. John, here at the Highland meeting, and I hope that I've given your listeners a glimpse of what they can expect if and when they come to a Highland meeting. We usually meet right here in Highland at the Highland Community Center or at the Highland City Building. And Highland, by the way, is building a new, they're building onto their community center, whereas today it holds only 75 people. I think in the future we'll be able to accommodate maybe a couple hundred people. I hope that's the case. And so it's going to be a very nice facility. It'll probably cost us a little bit more, but we'll have more room for more people. So we look forward to that, John.
That would be really cool. Also, every year you have Joel Skousen come and speak to your group, which brings out hundreds of people. Yeah. So
in fact, he's been doing the Highland meeting since 2015, and found at the latterdayconservative.com. Brian Meekum runs that website, latterdayconservative.com. Every single one of Joel's presentations year after year from 2015, 2016, 17, 18, all the way up to 24, you can find on the YouTube channel for Latter-day Conservative. .com. You just go to latterdayconservative.com, go to the bottom and click that link, and you can now open up this huge library of material from Joel Skousen over the years from 2015 to the present year. It's really a kaleidoscope of information. You just won't find a treasure trove more valuable than that, John. Very interesting.
Okay, so I'd like to touch base with you on how the elections went. I had you on, I want to say it was 2 weeks before the election, 2 Tuesdays before the election, I think. Want to get your thoughts on how you felt it turned out. Now, frankly, both you and I did not vote for Donald Trump, even though I'm very grateful to the Lord that Donald Trump is president as opposed to we having Kamala Harris. In my opinion, actually, the Lord did bless the United States. I don't think the Lord cursed the United States when Mitt Romney didn't win the office. Had he won, I don't think it necessarily would have been as big of a blessing as Donald Trump being in office. But also, unfortunately, we didn't get the governor. Unfortunately, we didn't, if we would have gotten Joel Skousen, I mean, I would have been over the moon. But obviously, that wasn't going to happen. But I was really disappointed that some people didn't do better or win it outright. But I want your thoughts real quickly on some of the major offices. What are your thoughts?
Well, we parallel. I think our thinking is pretty much in parallel there, John, because I too am grateful that President-elect Trump won the presidential election there. He won the electoral votes and he won the battleground states, and that's what he had to win in order to win the election. He had to win in the battleground states, and I think that the wokeism of the left just began to get to people. And even people on the left had enough, right? I mean, when they discovered what their children were suffering in public schools under the woke ideology, when they discovered, all of the corruption that was going on, they just had enough. We can't brook this anymore, and so I think the American people voted for Trump in greater numbers than ever before. The funny thing, John, about that national election was that there are 20 million more votes cast in 2020 than in 24 or in 2016. It just goes to show you how many dead people voted in that 2020 election. But it have been a blessing, John, because now President-elect Trump will be in office over the next 4 years, when there may be probably another couple of justices retire from the U.S. Supreme Court, and he'll be able to make those appointments, which I think is going to be a big, big deal. You look at the 3 justices that he appointed, Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and was the other one Kavanaugh? I can't remember.
Kavanaugh, yes. Kavanaugh.
Yeah. And without those appointments, Roe v. Wade would never have been overturned. So, Greedy, if that's his only legacy, I will applaud him till the day I die, because, because the Supreme Court has made some really good landmark decisions in just the past 4, 6, 8 years. They're going to make some more landmark decisions in the coming 4 years. And Trump's appointments hopefully will be just as good or better in the coming 4 years as they were in his
hope
first
they're better.
term.
So Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, but especially Kavanaugh, and what's the gal's name?
Amy Coney Barrett.
Barrett, yes. Kavanaugh and Barrett, to me, leave a lot to be desired. A bunch to be desired.
I totally agree. But those three did vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. So you got to hand it to them there.
I will say the Lord gave us a little bit of a reprieve, and may we take some action upon that and do well. But I agree with you. It's interesting. I have a child. I have a daughter that's 21, and then I have a son that's about almost 18 years younger than she is. And the difference between the youth, especially the young men, between the people that are my 21-year-old's age and the one that's just like two grades, 2 years in high school behind, the difference between the two is very significant. But boy, that group of around, that is around 21 right now, so many of those young women are so woke. Even the young girls of the of my son, that's like 15 months younger, but younger, 2 years younger in school, even the girls are not quite as woke. So I think that there was a shift that even the youth started to see and was like, hey, we see things turning around.
Well, I should hope so, John. Turning it around, we must, because another great thing that Trump might do is if the only thing he did in this next term was free the January 6th prisoners, that would be a feather in our liberty cap.
Yes, absolutely.
Get Tina Peters, get the creator of the Silk Road out of jail, right? What's his name? Ross Ulbright. Get him out. Get Ian Freeman out of jail. I mean, these are patriots, through and through, solid patriots. And all of the J6 political prisoners, get them out of jail and get them home to their families. That alone would be a win.
To me, Biden just opened the doors to do it.
He did.
Flat out pardoned his son for not just the two things that he had some heat on him about, as far as tax evasion and what was tax evasion, and what was the other thing? Gun charges.
Yeah.
But he gave him a full pardon for everything he did for the last 11 years.
Yeah, piece of work that is. But boy, he sure did open the door. You can say that again. Not that Trump would do that, but it does give Trump the opportunity to free a lot of our political prisoners.
And to me, that is going to be one of the biggest signs on what this Trump presidency is going to be like. I'm hopeful that he's going to do a mass pardoning. I think he should pardon every single J6er. And well, John, there's some of those guys that actually, hit the cops and stuff like that. Guess what? Do we know that they weren't rigged up? We know for a fact the FBI has lied to Congress, has lied to the House of Representatives, and lied to the Senate, and said, first they lied and said they didn't have any undercover agents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a lie. And now it's not necessarily a technical lie, because that's not officially what they refer to him as, but it's a lie. Yeah. And then and Michael Letts has talked about that, because they're actually, I forget what his term for the undercovers is, more along the lines of like official agents or something along those lines, or but they know how to lie. They're trained on how to lie when they get up on the stand, so they don't get nailed for perjury. But some of them actually literally have committed perjury. Like, I believe Mayorkas has committed perjury. I believe that Christopher Wray has committed perjury. And a lot of the underlings underneath him have committed perjury. So the bottom line is, if you have the FBI that's willing to withhold evidence stating, and the evidence would show that there were government actors that were there on July 6th stirring people up.
January 6th, you mean, right?
On January 6th. If you've got people that are they're willing to do that, and the government says nothing about it and hides all that information and hides the film, like, they take a guy supposedly that's a J6er, they haul him around the corner, then they wind up chuckling with one another and give one another fist bumps, and the guy goes, right?
Yep.
So we know just from that one video, there was government actors amongst them. So if that's happening and it's not being told and it's not being brought out, my opinion is you blanket pardon for everybody. Everybody should get out. And the next thing that needs to get, they need those that have been withheld. They need to be given money for everything they went through.
Yeah, I'm with you there, John. Big time. Everything you said, J6. I'm glad that Michael Letts has spoken out about that. A lot of people. Larry Klayman is an attorney who's been defending a number of the January 6th, citizens, and he's been doing a bang-up job of defending them, even though the odds, the deck is stacked against them, the liberal judges and so forth. But hopefully Trump can set all of that right and get us back on the path to liberty. And this whole election cycle, I'm with you, John. I think the God in heaven has given us a reprieve and has given us a glimmer of hope that we can some sanity to this country, so restore some freedom, restore some of the liberties that we have lost, and begin to take our country back. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot more people becoming knowledgeable about the Constitution, about the importance of liberty and the importance of property. And but we're making strides. We're moving the right direction. And even if we lose this battle, people individually who fight this battle will have won the war, because it doesn't matter quite so much who wins, John, but which side you are on. Are you are you on the Lord's side, the side of agency and liberty and opportunity, or are you going to be on the adversary's side, where your actions are coerced and you have to be good because he'll force you to be good? I mean, which side do you want to be on, John?
For the eternities, the bottom line is it only matters what side you're on. Who's on God's side? Who? I mean, that's the only thing that matters for the eternities. Here on earth, we may not see it as easily. So one of the things that I'm really liking that we're hearing, and Michael, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Okay, I'm bringing him on live. So joining us now is Michael Letts of Invest USA. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is actually the first time you get to see the face of Lowell Nelson. Lowell Nelson used to be on a number of times on K-Talk with me. We would do a little crosstalk, and Lowell would join us while you and I were talking, Michael. But
right.
one of the things that I'm hopeful for, and I've said this to you, Lowell. I've said this to Reverend Jim Hardin, who you've been there when I've talked to them, and you've heard me talking to them, as well as Michael Letts' good friend, Reverend Jim Hardin. I think the biggest sin that we have in the United States right now is child sex trafficking, the pedophilia crap that's going on, and it sounds like those within Trump's realm are looking to come after that. if we can do some things like releasing the Epstein information, P. Diddy, and stuff like that, and show who's involved, I think it's really going to hurt, because I think there's a number of quote unquote good Republicans as well as quote unquote good Democrats that are on that list that have done that stuff. And I think if we can clean that up, I don't think it'll sink the United States, but it is going to be painful, but it will allow the truth to come out. And that's what we need. So if we can start there, and then we can get some of the other things that we've talked about, I think the Lord has a chance to bless us, because we got to stop those sins and we've got to repent of them. And one of them is we've got to admit them as a nation, and we've got to hold those accountable. Now, I may even go as far as saying, I don't think that necessarily that they should have to have the death penalty. I may even go as far as saying, okay, all the information comes out about, against them, long as they say, I did it, and these are the other individuals that did it. If they will say that, I'm willing to give them reprieve and let them go and live their lives, quote unquote, normally. Now, I want them on a bunch of pedophile lists, right? I want everybody to know, so no one will trust them around their children or grandchildren. But I'm willing to let a lot of things slide right now, just so we get it out and truth out in the open. But we say after this, you have 5 months to come forward. You have 10 months to come forward. You don't come forward, we're going to the mat, and you will be held accountable. So, Lowell, I'm going to give you the. I'm going to let Michael Letts say hi, and then we'll let you go. So, Michael, hello. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Well, it's been a great show. I got to listen into a little bit more. You're doing a fantastic job. And John, you're a great host as always. There's a lot to discuss, but I will tell you one thing, adding to what you said about the children. I think one of the key things we need to put into play here is the churches have got to step up and start doing their responsibility. The churches have to be the church and the moral climate for this country. And I expect every church should be saying, we will help rescue these children. We will help find their homes. And if their homes are no longer available, we will find them Christ-centered homes across this country.
And
Where
I'm
are
gonna
you,
say,
churches? We
and
need
for
you.
those that are, I would even say citizen or non-citizen, we will find them homes. We will get them back to their countries of origin. We will get them back to their parents, or we will find them homes here in the United States.
No question.
So so I'm glad that I'm tracking with Michael Letts, because I actually have been thinking about this and talking with a few people. Okay, so why when Israel fell apart in the scriptures, what I said, I talked to this about Michael Letts the other night. The pastors, the preachers, the reverends, bishops, whatever you want to call them, back in Israel, when the prophets were upheld by the kings, Israel did well.
Mm-hmm.
When they weren't upheld by the kings, and I will put, what does that equate today by the president, by the governors, and by legislators? And what would I equate the prophets to? You know, let's just say pastors, ministers, everything along those lines. Let's equate them to, if the ministers will start standing up and saying, we need to repent of our ways, we're going to do everything we that can to help these people out, I think we have a chance to get our nation under control. If we don't take this opportunity, we will have someone worse than Biden in, and it will be the end of America. That's my as America as we know it. There may be individual states that can band together, but the end of America I think will happen if we don't have pastors and kings, meaning Donald Trump and others, stand up and say, we need to do this. Michael, then Lowell, your statement. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I was just on a show just a second ago telling people this. Look, if you think the election is God's great gift to America and it's over, you miss the point. God gave us an opportunity to repent, but the work just begins now, and that work needs to be led by the churches who have been silent for decades. No longer can you be silent. I tell people this, they're not country clubs, they're churches for a reason. They're to proclaim values and principles, all the values and principles, not just that God is love. God is holy. God holds us to standards. He has principles and values that He expects us to abide by. All of that needs to be taught, to not just to our generation, but to the generations to come. And if we don't recognize that, God, I believe, is giving us this final opportunity to repent. If we don't stand in the gap, repent, and bring America back to values and principles, it will be gone. Because when America is gone, the rest of our globe collapses because America is the last bastion of hope and freedom
Preach,
in the
brother.
world.
Preach. Preach on, brother. Amen.
Yeah. John
Yeah,
said he
well,
would take the offering afterwards.
well,
No,
and we have
no. Lowell will take the offering. John's a bad man. Lowell's a saint. Okay, let's be clear on that.
Hey, well,
You're hilarious.
I will just add one thing to that. I agree with you both, obviously, but we have a pattern before us. It was in the 1700s. It was called the Black Robed Regiment.
Regiment.
And
Yes,
we
sir.
need the same. We need the same thing today. You know, one reason I think churches aren't doing that today is because of their tax exempt status. Right? They're afraid that if they speak out against the velveted gloved hand, that they will lose their tax exempt status. But we need to be courageous. I don't care whether you have a tax exempt status or not. If you're a church, you need to speak up. You need to stand up and talk and help the people around you, your community. Right? Their salvation depends on their courage to stand up in the face of immorality and set things right. All right. That's our job. That's our job as
That is our
citizens.
job.
So let's get after it, man. That's what we're here to do. You were born
Preach,
for
We're
this.
leading the
That's all I like to
charge.
tell
Preach,
people.
Lowell.
John,
Preach
you
on.
were born for this. Michael, you were born for this. We agreed to
Well,
come here and do this. Let's do it, man. Let's move.
Absolutely.
I agree. Let's lead the charge, and quite frankly, whether it's just three of us charging the hill or whether it's the rest of us, we're going to charge the hill regardless. And to
Amen,
God be
brother.
the glory.
Yes.
Amen.
Glory to God in the highest. Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And thank you, John, for having me on. I better run now and let you two continue the conversation without me. But Michael, it's a pleasure to meet you. And like Michael said, John, you're a wonderful talk show host. It's a
He
privilege
is.
and a joy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo, for helping out.
I do not endorse that sentiment. I don't know why they said it, but it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have. The thing that I get to experience is I get to meet men like you guys, great patriots who love the Lord and care about liberty. It's one of the honors of my life. Other than being a son of God, a son of my parents, a father and husband, it is the honor of my life to meet men like you.
Well,
we'll
bless you,
all
John.
be on the other side of the river, and to God be the glory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen.
All right. Lowell, thanks for joining me. Remember, folks, Highland Meeting Group, typically the first Friday of every month. This month, it's not in person, but he will be sending out an email with past shows that you can see. And thanks for joining me, Lowell.
You're welcome, brother. Take care now.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Mo.
Michael, once again, thank
Yes,
you so
sir.
much for joining me. Appreciate you being here, brother.
My privilege. I apologize on the other, but it's God has a way of opening doors that He wants opened and closing the ones He doesn't. And I'm thankful that we're able to use every door to proclaim the truth.
Well, so just for FYI for the audience, and real quickly, Michael, from time to so in general, the first Tuesday of every month is going to be Michael Letts. We'll probably have him fill in from time to time on other shows as well. But in general, the first Tuesday of every month is Michael Letts' show. It'll be Talk with John, the Michael Letts show on Talk with John. How about that?
I love it. I love it.
So, you know, and I'm looking forward to that. So Michael Letts is the CEO, founder and president of Invest USA. What is Invest USA? And I'm doing my best to do this from memory. It is a national nonprofit organization that has given out thousands of bulletproof vests to law enforcement and first responders, and even, if I remember correctly, like National Guard and so forth throughout the United States. So Michael Letts is, like I said, the CEO and the founder, and we're glad to have him here today. You can find out more about Michael Letts and Invest USA if you go to his website. It happens to be right there on the screen. You can see it right there on the bottom.
Sure can.
InvestUSA.org. So, Michael, thanks for being here. And I'm going to also give a little secret out about Michael Letts.
Go ahead.
To be a minister, if I remember correctly. So you've been a chaplain.
That is correct.
You've been a chaplain with law enforcement, but you are also a chaplain. I think that's, to me, I don't know that there should be a higher honor in the military or a police force than chaplain. It should be the most revered of all offices within those groups, because it's a sacred duty. It's a sacred thing.
You're right.
Because
thank you, Joe.
As you know, I'm going to give out just a personal story, and I'm only going to share it. And may the Lord forgive me, and may you forgive me, because I don't want my audience to think that I'm trying to make myself sound grandiose. But law enforcement and those in the military go through PTSD, have PTSD, and go through terrible things. So I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of, at least 14 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, I came up on, I saw two girls run across the road, and one of them, and it was a 4-lane highway with a median, and the girls went from, let's say, actually for camera, they were coming this way. They stopped at the intersection. So this lane right here, there was a car in this lane, and it came to a stop, and it came to a stop a little late, but this car right here kept traveling. And I think the reason why they kept on traveling was because this car, it looked like it was going to be turning right, or it was coming to a stop and slowing down like it would be if it was going to be making a right hand, making a turn. Then there were two girls that ran holding hands, sisters holding hands. The one that was the closest to the oncoming traffic was taller and saw what was going on and stopped here in this lane. The younger sister continued on. I saw her get hit. I saw her tossed in the air and turn and land on her side. And I was the first one to respond. And I was in a vehicle. I was in a large truck, almost the level of a semi-truck. And I brought my vehicle to a stop. I went, and I saw, there were a couple of us that were responding to her at the same time. I could just tell by the way the men were moving their body, they were going to turn her on her side. And I said, stop. She had a backpack on. So, you could tell she was in discomfort. There was a little bit of blood that was coming out of the side of her mouth. She was sheet white. And so I was with her from that moment. That little girl was my little girl. She was mine.
Mm-hmm.
For that short period of time until her dad showed up on scene. She was my daughter. And so I just said, stop, because I could tell by the body movement that they were going to turn her. And it's like everybody looked at me and was like, okay, dude, what do we do now? And so we held her. And I'm looking around going, I don't know what the crap. So I checked her pulse. She fortunately had a pulse. I saw her take a breath. So I was like, okay, we don't need to perform CPR. And as I was getting out of the vehicle, I called 911 and I said, the girl's just been hit. You need to send an ambulance. I need first responders. I need them now. And I'm hanging up to take care of the situation. And so my one of the cops that the first cop to respond was an off-duty officer that was on his way home from another precinct. And then, so he helped me out. We made sure she didn't move. And he goes, okay, I'm going to hold her neck. You hold her legs. Her legs were crushed. And I could tell she was uncomfort. And it kind of hurt to know that later on. But I held her legs. I put her on the gurney and I got her in the back of the ambulance. And that's when her dad showed up. But a cop that was in charge of the whole situation called my wife and said, just so you know, I want you to know your husband's fine, but he saw an accident. This is probably going to be very difficult. He probably will have some post-traumatic stress, and he's going to have a difficult time dealing with this. And he said a few other things. And sure enough, a couple nights, I woke up in bed from nightmares of that little girl. Okay? The girl lived. I can only imagine what those in the military that have seen their brothers die and seen the kids that didn't make it. So I just share that story to go how much I value first responders, and folks, we need to protect them. It takes a special breed of men because they experience that how many times a year?
Quite often, John. Quite often. You know, I say to myself, and I believe this, that I believe that we just do what we hope every other American would do in similar circumstances. We just happen to be the one on the front lines doing it at the moment. But quite frankly, I mean, you are correct. Let me give a few little statistics. We have the highest suicide rate among first responders in history. We have the highest divorce rate. We have, and it's not just among first responders. We also have a tremendously big impact of our active duty personnel who've been in combat situations coming home. You're right. PTSD is very real. Here's what's so sad. We can spend billions of dollars in foreign aid to countries that really, quite frankly, can't stand us. They use that money to funnel it through to terrorist organizations, to others, to try to harm our citizens. But yet we can't seem to find the compassion and the resources to take care of America's own. Now, I want to bring that point home, John, what I'm fixing to say. You know, with the new administration coming in, the top priority has been to secure the American people from the drug cartels, from the terrorists, from the criminals who've been let in, and most importantly, yes, I say the word most importantly because the administration agrees with this statement, from the human sex traffickers, the 400,000 children that are missing so far. But what we're going to do on that, folks, no, we're not going to go get grandma with her hearing aids and throw her across the river. We're going after the worst of the worst. And we are expecting great opposition. You know, these people have high ordinances. They have long range rifles, AK 47s, among other things. They've got a lot of ordinances that have come
Can
up.
I interject something that I've heard on the
Sure.
news reported multiple times recently? Here in the United States, the average gang member is told you don't mess, and you get in trouble if you mess with cops. You don't
Correct.
attack them. You definitely don't go after their family. You leave the cops alone because it brings more heat, right?
That's correct.
The gangs,
Used to be anyway.
the gangs from other nations have now been given the green light to go after law enforcement.
Tierra de Agua is one from Venezuela that, quite frankly, they get a bonus for the number of officers they can kill. And so we're targeted now. And we're going to make sure that we do our job. We are the tip of the spear. The military will be assisting in these deportations of these criminal acts. But here's what I wanted to tell the American people. These targeted drug dealers, human sex traffickers, terrorists, and criminals are heavily armed. They are not going to be sitting on the curb with their little lunch pail waiting on the bus to take them home. They have already, within their circles, intel shows that they are putting together their defensive posture. They're going to do what they can to kill as many as possible to stay here in this country. We're going to ask now our brave young men and women who are part of the thin blue line, and it's very thin at the moment, to be the tip of the spear. Yeah, we go in the next 30 days and begin to implement this policy and begin to make America safe again. But we're going to ask them to do it without even having the necessary equipment to give themselves the maximum security and protection to come home to their children. John, that's not fair. We need to make sure that our people have the ability to defend themselves as well. And so as we go into this Christmas season, I want every one of us to be thankful, be joyous. A new day and new dawn is arising. But keep in mind that those who are fixing to get called into harm's way, and let's make sure that we provide them with the basic necessities to give them a fighting chance to come home to their children too. So if they would, for those that are listening, you have the chance. I don't normally ask for this. John will tell you that. Very rarely do I do it in the show. But let's try to see what we can do to make sure that we raise enough dollars to save as many blue lives as possible in the days ahead. Go to our website, www.investUSA.org, and make sure you donate.
I want you to give that again because I started to talk over you. And sometimes a little
That's
bit with
okay.
these computer things, unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to tell if someone's pausing or not.
Okay.
So, but I also want to mention, hey, folks, today
Go ahead.
is Giving Tuesday. We had
You are
Black
correct.
Friday. We had Cyber Monday. Today is Giving Tuesday. Let's give a little bit to investusa.org.
Thank you, John. And if they'll go to our website, that's www.investusa.org. It's a charity. .org. There's a donation button. There's all kind of programs you can be involved with. I am just concerned and heavily burdened that we're fixing to ask our finest to put their lives on the line for, unfortunately, for the last 4 years, to people that they felt like don't appreciate and don't care for them. But that doesn't make any difference to them. They're going to do it anyway because they love this country, they love its people, they're determined to do their job, and that's to provide protection for each and every one of us. So please help me to remember them and to honor them and to make sure they have what's necessary to come home to their children at Christmas time. I hate to see Christmases with children suffering because one of their parents made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty.
Especially in a situation where we could have had an active shooter vest for them and they could have
Correct.
come. That's what we don't want to have happen. So
a lot to be said, but thank you, John, for the opportunity. I mean, so much going on in the country today, and there's so many things to discuss, but that was one of the heavy things on my mind because I will promise you, with the upcoming administration, having just been back from Mar-a-Lago and meeting with Cash and Tom and the rest of them, we are committed to making sure America is safe once again. And quite frankly, there are plenty out there who are trying to determine how to make us not safe again. We have Democratic mayors and governors who are saying that they're going to stand firm and not allow any of the illegals to be deported. And my response is, look, if you want to defend a child sex trafficker, and it's not just the sexuality that we're talking about, they torture these kids. They murder these kids. They abuse these kids. Anybody that wants to stand and protect somebody that does that doesn't deserve to live, in my opinion, to begin with. But second of all, certainly shouldn't live in this great country. So we're not going to allow them to stand in the way.
And on top of that, okay, so let's go to, unfortunately, there's bad people here in America that partake of those children. But if those children weren't there to be taken advantage of, some of them may not act on it. But now they know that they can go to some what would be the proper way, some house where there's a bunch of illegals and they know that nobody can speak the language and is going to say anything. As long as your color of your money is green, you get away with whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about the kids squealing on you and saying who you are, because they can't communicate with anybody and they're afraid to. We need to get rid of individuals that give them that opportunity to do it.
You're exactly right. Let's take a look at some numbers real quickly. 400,000 last year alone. 8 million children went missing worldwide. Why do so many go missing throughout the United States? The United States is one of the biggest exporters of child sex trafficking in the world. Why is that? Well, everybody knows that it's easier to get in another country if you're coming from the U.S. than any other place in the world, because America is still looked up to as the land of the free. Those are good people that are coming from the U.S., so we want to welcome them into our country. And so they're taking advantage of that to transport children into these pitiful, horrific situations. They transport them in shipping containers, John. No ventilation. No wonder half of them suffocate and die before they get to the borders to where they're going. Just horrific conditions. And the fact of the matter is that there's still a lot of people in this country that partake in that deviant behavior as well. Well, guess what? It's a new dawn, a new day. We're putting an end to that. And I expect every American to rally behind us. I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, gender, race, makes no difference. We're going to protect those who can't protect themselves. We're going to protect these children. And I'm asking every church in America to make sure that they buckle up, provide leadership, and let's take care of, let's find a place for these children that we're going to rescue. Let's get them home. And if their homes have been destroyed, then let's create them a new one. Let's give them a chance for a better society, for a better future. We can collectively do that if we have the will, and I believe we have the will now as Americans to do so.
Well, let me sidetrack real quickly. Folks, if you happen to, I know that we've got some of you that are out there watching us live right now, because I can see some information on our end that shows that. But also, should you want to call in, feel free to. Michael's taken calls before. The number is 385-899-2134. Also, you are listening to us on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We are live on X, on Rumble, and YouTube. And our website is kmmu.org. Folks, this is not only, and our lonely call screener is waiting to take your call. So the bottom line is we're here at KMMU. We're grateful to have great guests like Michael Letts be able to join us. He is on many national shows, and we appreciate him being here on Talk with John. Okay, let's get to. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of half an hour. We might go a little bit over, but let's get to what I originally invited you on for, and that's I wanted to talk about what your thoughts were on the on who Trump has coming in. And I want to talk about the people I want to hit specifically three people that I'm concerned, two that I'm concerned about, and one that I'm not happy that is not there. So first, Dr. Oz, I'm not thrilled that he is part of this administration. I'm also not happy in any way, shape, or form about, I believe her name is Janet Neshawiet.
That's correct.
So I know I'm butchering her last name, but she's been the pick for Surgeon General. Now, there are some out there in the media that think the same way we do, and they're like, well, Trump's putting together a team where you can have all different thoughts. They can all give him different thoughts, because heaven knows it wasn't that way in the Biden administration. It was everybody like, put the masks on and stick needles in their arms from the last pandemic. So the bottom line is, but on the flip side of the coin, we have some really good ones that are like, no, that was a terrible idea. Here's the statistics why we shouldn't have done it. But Janet really concerns me, because she was all for, she pushed the jabs, the boosters, masks, and lockdowns. That really concerns me that that's floating around. So those two picks were bad ones, in my opinion. And one that I really wish was there was Attorney General Matt Gaetz would have been awesome. So yesterday when I called you up and said, hey, can you join me tonight for this show? And these are the subjects that I want to talk to you about. So keep them in mind. You're like, John, with Matt Gaetz, it may not be quite as bad as you think it is. So
well, let's talk about Matt a little bit. First of all, it was imperative that we find out, not on the Democratic side, we already know the Democrats can't stand us. But you would think, well, you have a majority of Republicans in the Senate and you have a very slim majority in the House. Now, it's the Senate that matters right now because they're the only ones that can vote on confirmation. But the House will be important when we come to budget time and begin to appropriate or de-appropriate the monies that are necessary to bring about reform. So we needed to find out how many of these are either true patriots as Republicans or who are what we call rhinos or establishment and who support the same policies as the Democrats do. They just happen to have an R behind their name. And so we had to put a few people out there to see the reaction that we would get. We got that. We knew that Matt would generate that kind of reaction as Attorney General. Now people say, yeah, but you really need to put him in there. Now let me give you a little different perspective. Is Pam as aggressive as Matt? No. Is she as principled though? Yes. It's not you're getting Pam, you're getting the team that's put together to come with her. Now, that's one aspect to look at. The second is you say, well, what about Matt? Well, let me remind you, if you look over the past 4 years, who did the most damning work, shall we say, in prosecutions? It wasn't the Attorney General. It was the special counsel. You know, Matt can be appointed as a special counsel without necessity of Senate confirmation. So now you may get two pit bulls instead of one, and it may be much more effective in doing it that way. So there's always a different pattern that we have thought about very carefully, and you will see begin to materialize to help bring about true change and reform. And why do we say that? Nobody likes change and reform. That's just a general principle. But especially those who are nefarious and doing evil things, they don't want anybody to know what they've been up to. Matt is the kind of person that will make sure that as a special prosecutor, he makes sure that America knows exactly what's been going on behind those closed doors. And Pam should be the one with her team to make sure they're fully prosecuted. You're going to see that happening. And so that is a very positive. Now, when it comes to the health particular issues, John, you're right. There's no other way around it. There is, let's test the waters with some of these. Quite frankly, I want to assure the American people some of these may not be the actual nominees by the time the confirmation process is over. Because as this begins to come out of their previous track record, more and more people become alarmed. You say, is that appropriate? Of course it is. Because what we discovered in COVID-19 was it had nothing to do with an illness. It had everything to do with government control. And if you did not have enough common sense to figure that out, then you probably don't need to be in a leadership position to lead this country down a further path of destruction, which is exactly what was done before. So all that's coming out. So I tell people, you may not like some of these appointments. I don't, for some that I don't care for either. But give it time to wash itself out in the wash, in the cycle, and you'll see it will right itself the way it needs to be done.
Okay. I've got someone in the chat right now responding to a couple things that we've said. So
Sure.
First thing was science is the devil's Bible. So it's I think it's Percival. Percival, I think is. Science is the devil's Bible. These are 5 statements by him. I may not read all of them, but I'm just going to interject from time to time. Science is the devil's Bible. Dr. Joe Rogan is all I need. I think we've got a little bit of a troll, just so you know. I think it may be a troll. I'm not 100%. And then he said, and then the same individual said, Matt is a hero to all dirty creeps. Paying for underage sex with e-transfers is pretty dumb. And then you hate doctors until you get sick. There's plenty of doctors out there, and my call screener let us know if we mention that 19 thing, C19, YouTube might cancel the might take down this show. So that's something we need to be careful about, and not that we want to, but we have to play the game with YouTube. So real quickly, we love doctors. There's plenty of doctors that from the very beginning. Like Dr. Zelenko, Peter McCullough. There were a number of doctors that right from the very beginning said, hey, guess what? This is not the way to deal with COVID. Scientifically speaking, what you guys are doing with COVID is not the way to do it. And then my call screener also happened to say Matt gets for special counsel. So your thoughts on especially what he said about Matt Gaetz is paying for underage sex with e-transfers is pretty dumb. I think there's some question on that.
Well, let's put it in perspective. Certainly, that is a true statement. Anybody paying for sex with e-transfers, it would be pretty stupid to do so. But I will say this: don't believe everything you hear, because if you will recall, on the first administration for Trump, he appointed some Supreme Court justices who were very falsely accused of allegations that were just dirty politics. Quite frankly, that has not ended. You're going to see increased presence of that as they desperately fight to keep their activities hidden and to block anybody from exposing them. And how do they do that? Well, if I don't agree with you, I just go after you. I attack you as a person. I attack your integrity. So I'm not defending everything, but I'm saying be careful what you believe without knowing the facts.
When the FBI investigated these allegations under Joe Biden,
correct,
there is no way in this world had they found something that they could have indicted him on and taken. They would have taken. They've already proven we'll take something to court if we even think we have a shot at it. They did it with Donald Trump. You don't think they would have done that with Matt Gaetz?
correct.
Would they have done
there's
it with
no
Matt
question.
Gaetz?
No question they would have done that. You know, it's just what you said. If they'd had anything to hang their hat on, they would have done it. And that's why you raise a very good point, which is why I raised the other issue. Be careful what you believe, from what you hear, because quite frankly, some of the stuff is being said for one particular reason, and that's to block the ability to drain the swamp. You know, I would encourage everyone listening to remember this point. There's a lot at stake in the days ahead. People that have done evil, nefarious things in the name of good government are suddenly going to be exposed. And there's going to be a lot of accountability that's going to have to occur because of it. And they don't want that. And they will do whatever they can to keep that from happening. Lie, steal, cheat, doesn't make any difference. That's what they'll do. So in the days ahead, understand that we have one purpose in mind, and that's to restore America back to law and order. You can't do that if you don't hold people accountable. So that's one of the tenets of the platform. We will be going after and holding people accountable, but understand that they're not going to want that to happen easily. They will fight back and play as dirty as they possibly can. So keep that in mind as you see the headlines in the days ahead.
Okay, I want to talk about who you think were the best picks that Trump had. And I'm going to say there's someone that happens to be Pete, Mr. Pete, I think in the military, and Tom Homan, I believe it is, are two of the great ones, in my opinion. But so I want to hit the good picks. And there's one other subject matter that I want to make sure we hit before the end of the show is how do we keep, so my biggest concern doesn't mean we don't do it, but my biggest concern is the Democrats have been ramping things up all these times, going after the political, going after to the point where they're going after Trump now. First they went after
Right.
Steve Bannon, then they go after Donald Trump. They take out let's start. J6ers, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump. Is it going to get to the point where one party, the Democrats were doing it, and finally the Republicans now go, we have total proof that you Democrats have been involved in this child sex trafficking trade. Now we need to let the nation know, and other things. But my concern is that we're going to start going this way and escalating, and everybody that gets in office is going to wind up having, the worst. They're all going to wind up being in jail, and then we're going to have total tyranny eventually. That's my biggest concern. How do we keep from that happening?
I think you have a valid concern, but just because it's a valid concern doesn't mean that people can't be held accountable.
Oh, we've
And
got to
quite
hold people
frankly,
accountable, or the Democrats will continue doing what they're doing.
you're exactly right. So here's what we are saying publicly: is we want to do twofold. It sounds contradictory, but I think you'll understand why we're so desperate for this country to have. There has to be transparency. Okay, there has to be accountability. You did something wrong, you will be held accountable. But it's like a coin that has two sides. But the flip side of that is we're not giving you carte blanche to make false accusations and destroy people's lives. We're going to hold the judicial system and those that are making accusations just as accountable, whether it's the media or anybody else, as we hold those who commit the crime. So, in other words, if you just throw out there, well, John's did this, and you have no proof, you're going to be held accountable for that because now you've destroyed John's life without cause. So, be careful when you make accusations that you have the ability to defend and back them up because we think it's just as important to hold people accountable to the truth on both sides. Don't make an accusation that you don't know to be valid because you're destroying a person's ability to provide his livelihood, to support a family, and to be an asset to the community. Once you destroy somebody's reputation, it's hard to get that back. And so, Trump has experienced that firsthand. Many of us have experienced that firsthand. Those who are involved in conservative causes are often maligned and false things said about all the time. But in the past, it hasn't made any difference. Yeah, I'll throw out an accusation against you, John. At the end of the day, if I'm proven wrong, oops, sorry. I made a mistake. Let's move on. No, you destroyed somebody's life. You need to be held accountable for it. So there's an equal balance here that we're going to be seeking, making sure that the truth is known factually and making sure that if accusations are made, they're factual or you will be held accountable for making false accusations. Somebody says, doesn't that temper people coming forward with information? Unfortunately, it could. But at the same time, we have to be careful and balanced. It's not worth ruining the lives of people falsely. So we have to make sure that we do everything with decency and order, and that everything's factual and transparent, and that then we hold people accountable. Tall order, but I think it can be done, John.
Who do you think are the best picks? Who are you most excited that's now that has been announced, that he's announced that he wants in his administration?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest pick and the most controversial is Cash right now. And why is Cash so important? Cash has one reputation. Known him for a while. He's principled, he's valued, and he sees things the way they're supposed to be. They're black and white. They're not gray. You either did something wrong or you didn't. And quite frankly, the way Cash views it, if you did something wrong, we're not going to just look the other way because of who you are, the position that you have, the party you're involved with, or the money you have in your account. You need to be held accountable, period, regardless of anything else. That's what scares the establishment so bad. That's what scares the Bureau so bad right now. Because quite frankly, let's just be very blunt. Let's just talk about a couple real quick things. We'll do it in 30 seconds. Russian dossier. Totally false. The agency and the Bureau knew it was. They did it anyway. They pursued FISA
They knew
orders,
it from
knowing they were totally false.
didn't they know it from like pretty much the beginning that it was false?
They were actually part of setting the stage, creating the story. So of course they knew it was false because they created it. Same thing with FISA court orders. The same thing with their involvement of over 200,000 people that they have illegally tapped and monitored without court orders. They've done all this kind of stuff. They know what they've done. They don't want you to know what they've done. So that's why they hate cash, because they know that cash is an uncompromising type situation. You can threaten him all you want to; it's not going to change the outcome. It's the same way with Tom, with the deportation matters. You can holler and yell all you want. Tom's not budging. He knows that what we need is to uphold the law. The law makes it a felony for you to interfere with the deportation of illegal immigrants. Makes it a felony for you to harbor an illegal immigrant. It's a felony. Notice I keep using the word felony because that's the big boys. That's not a misdemeanor where you get popped on the hand, you go home by 5 o'clock that afternoon. It's a felony to impede a federal agent from doing his investigation and his job. And what do we have? We have Democratic mayors, we have Democratic governors from California, Arizona, and others that you won't touch these illegals in our state. We will not allow you to use your state to destroy the rest of the country. Because here's how this country works. If I live in California, you can't tell me I can't go to Nevada. You can't tell me I can't go to South Carolina. When you're a member, where you live in this country, you can travel this country freely anytime you want to do so. So that's why we will shut down the borders and we will deport all these illegal immigrants who are drug dealers, who are sex offenders, who are terrorists, who are villains and criminals. And if you think you will use your position as a governor or mayor to impede federal due process, you're going to jail. We don't care who you are. You're going to jail. And you're not going to jail overnight for a photo op. These are felonies. You better bring a whole lot of luggage with you because you're going to be there a while. And that's what they're beginning to find out. We're not backing down. So you've seen Governor Haschel from New York, who initially took the same position. We're going to defend our illegals here. Nobody's going to touch them. We're not going to allow it to happen. She just comes out yesterday. Yes, we are going to help deport them. They're realizing now we're not backing down. And if they want to go to prison, we'll trust me. We've got plenty of room for them. We'll make sure that they're there for a long, nice stay. And so you're beginning to see that, and you're going to see that all across the country. We are not going to back down on our principles. We're not going to back down on our values. And those who have done wrong should be scared. The people you see crying out the loudest are the people that have probably done the most nefarious acts.
Okay, so I've got a question. What about the J6ers and freeing the
J6ers will be freed.
Julian Assange and Edward Snowden?
Quite frankly, all those who have stood against tyranny and stood for just making sure the public had access to the truth instead of it being buried like the agencies and all wanted to be done. Their day is coming. They will be rewarded. They will be honored for what they're doing, and this government will stand behind them to make sure that they are recognized properly for having paid a significant cost for the price of freedom.
Okay.
That includes the J6ers, by the way.
Pardon me?
That includes the J6ers, by the way.
Well, we've also got some people that are in prisons for the FACE Act. We've got 80-some-odd-year-old, is it 70-some-odd-year-old women that are in the clink because they were praying for women going in to abortion centers. What are your thoughts on the great truthful arbiter? One of the greatest presidents that we've ever had. I mean, he received 20 more million votes than even the great Barack Obama. He's just like this fantastic, wise old man. What do you think about...
in his own mind, he's a legend in his own mind.
Well, let me put it this way. He's a legend amongst all Democrats, especially Jen Psaki And Jen Psaki just happens to think he's the cat's meow. And let's also not forget that Biden's press secretary said, I don't know, I want to say it was I saw a clip that had her saying 5 times he will not pardon. How many times have he will not pardon he will not pardon Hunter Biden. How many times do I have to say this? I'm not going to talk about this again. I've already said it. How many times do you have to hear me say he's not going to pardon Hunter Biden? What happens someday?
Oh, there's no question. The sad part about it, I was just asked to comment on that earlier, is this. Everybody knew he was going to pardon him. I mean, none of us believed that he wasn't. But here's where he really made the mistake.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to disagree with you. I've got my audience screaming at me. There's plenty of Democrats that firmly believed he was not going to pardon him.
Well, here's where I'm going to give you. We're going to have to disagree. I'm going to give pushback. Why? Why would you believe anything he said? He's never spoken the truth on anything.
Personally, I never believed him. I know a number.
But here's a response to your audience. Let's go through just a few. I never didn't even know what Hunter's business was, much less who he was doing it with. Oh, yeah, I guess I did talk to someone, but I didn't know who I was talking to. Oh, I guess we were talking about business. Well, I was just giving some pointers. It wasn't really my. We could go on and on. I mean, that's just one. I could go on for the rest of the night till midnight talking about everything he said that hasn't been true. So why would you believe any differently? We all knew what he said, that he was going to pardon him. So that doesn't come as a surprise. What does come as a surprise is this. He had the opportunity, even though he was lying, to do something positive with his lie. You say, what do I mean by that? You remember one of his campaign promises. He was the great unifier. Do you not remember him saying that? So what could he have done? Instead of just being concerned only with himself and his family and Hunter, he could have said, I'm going to pardon Hunter, yes. But here's also what I'm going to do. I'm going to pardon the J6ers. I'm going to pardon Trump. I'm going to pardon. He could have gone down the list and said, we're going to unify this country and we're going to start off with a fresh approach. Did he have any interest in doing that? Of course not. His only interest was in himself and in his family, which he's demonstrated that. Why do you think he is so adamant, even in these final days, to spend billions of dollars more over in Ukraine when the American people have clearly spoken? No, we don't want that. Why is he doing it anyway? We know for a fact, this is not hyperbole, that the commanders on the front line of Ukraine say less than 10% of what we said is coming has ever gotten there. What happened to the other 90%? Well, we know now from intel from Poland and other places that are there on the front lines that, quite frankly, they're willing to testify that the other 90% has been money laundered and sent back to the U.S. to the pockets of Democratic National Committee, Democratic members in government, and quite frankly, it's been nothing but a laundering machine the whole time.
And let's not leave out certain Republicans have gotten a lot of money too. One of them happens to be a senator from the state of Utah who isn't named. Mike doesn't share the same name as you.
No, but I will tell you this, that he's on the list. And here's the great part I was just telling another audience about. This is what's got him so upset in Washington. Because this administration is making a list, checking it twice. We already know who's been naughty and who's been nice. And now the rest of America will know. And they fear that list coming out. The Jeffrey Epstein list will be coming out. The Diddy list will be coming out. And that's just the start.
Okay.
Wait till you see all the files that are going to be released.
You say that with confidence. Do you really believe those lists are going to come out?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
You say what could keep them from not coming out? They're going to have to murder everybody as part of this new transition team, because the commitment is made. The American people have a right to know. Now, we have been around the tables. We have heard the debate. No. John doesn't need to know because it's going to create too much controversy, and that's bad for the country. Let's just close the chapter and move on with a fresh, clean sheet of paper starting tomorrow. And here's the point. You can't have a clean sheet of paper starting tomorrow until you've dealt with and exposed the past. Because if you don't do that, the past will repeat itself unless the cycle is broken. So we have no choice. Those files will be released. The American people will know, yes, I will agree with what is said around the table. It will not be a pretty day. It'll be a very gray, cold, bitter, overcast day when that is done. But it has to be done if America is to heal and if America is to move forward in the right direction.
Have you seen the list? Have you?
I've seen too many. I've seen way too many lists. Yes. So is Cash.
Do you think my audience is going to be shocked with some of the people that are going to be on the list?
I don't think it's just your audience. I think America. And I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, black, white, boy, girl. I don't care who you are. I think when you see what we have allowed this country to delve into and to degenerate itself into, and have allowed agencies to become fiefdoms unto themselves, to have created mechanisms, illicit mechanisms, to bring in funding that is not part of the U.S. Treasury, so they can use it for nefarious purposes. I believe, quite frankly, the sewer systems are going to overflow with people running to the restroom to throw up because it is that bad. But let me tell you, we have to get the infection out if we're going to heal and move forward in the right direction.
Okay, we've got about, we'll say 4 or 5 minutes. We'll go a little bit over the 8 o'clock hour for you and the 6 o'clock hour for us. We've covered a number of things. We've covered some people that we have concerns with that are Trump's picks. We've covered some of the good ones. We've covered a little bit about in what ways we should we bring out all the information, no matter how painful it is. And we've covered someone that Donald Trump had to walk away, and Matt Gaetz. What are the 2 or 3 biggest things that have happened in this since he's become President Trump? Trump has become president-elect. What do you think are the 2 or 3 biggest things that have happened so far that you will see, that we as Americans will see at the beginning of his presidency? And do you think that his presidency will be any better than it was the first go around?
I think there's going to be a difference between night and day from the first presidency. Here's what the mistakes he made in the first presidency. He didn't really expect he was going to win. He won the election. He had the insiders who lied. Oh, we're your best friend. We've been pushing for you all along. Now, here's the list of people you need to bring on board to help you accomplish your agenda. They had no interest in accomplishing his agenda. They had every interest in impeding it. You notice this time he's going outside the Beltway. He's bringing in people who believe in liberty and the cause, not people of establishment that were there in the past. That's why you see such controversy. But he's going to prevail because he also knows how to get around the controversy. The Senate exercises this mighty rule. Hey, if we don't confirm, you don't get them. Guess what? It's called recess appointments. There's many other ways of getting a thing done without having to have your blessing. And we know what the secrets are. And we're going to start using them. Things that have never been done in history, but they're constitutional. So you just met your match. On the second thing, you say, what are some of the great things? He's not even president yet. What is going on? Putin and Zelensky. Hey, he's right. This war needs to end. They're not going to be sending money over this way anymore. Let's sit down and figure out a peace accord. They're already willing to do that immediately. What do you see happening in Iran with Hamas and Hezbollah? Oops, I guess we're not going to be getting any money anymore. We're going to have to end our funding of terrorism. If we're going to end our funding of terrorism, you better take advantage of your position now and see if you can get a peace accord with Israel ahead of time. Well, here's the issue. We've heard that language before. We're not going to be deceived by your lies about asking for peace when you're building war machines in the basement. That's not going to happen anymore either. So, what are some of the key things you're seeing? You're seeing the economy suddenly, the stock market and all. They know it's coming, and you're beginning to see inflation now starting to work its way back down. People know that this economy is going to change. Those on the global setting, the global market, they're saying, we're going to ditch the American dollar, which would have been devastating to our economy, are suddenly saying, oh, on second thought, maybe we should figure out how we're going to work this thing with the American dollar. You're having the United Nations and NATO, who in the past, hey, we're telling you what to do. We're global. You're just the United States of America. Suddenly they're now saying, guess what? America funds everything. If we don't start doing things the right way, they're going to leave us in the cold. We better change our attitude. You're seeing a dynamic change, not just in America, but globally, and he's not even been sworn in yet.
Last thought, parting thought. And I also want you to give out your website. I want you to make sure you announce the website again. And remember, folks, it's Giving Tuesday. So today's the day to give. Parting comment, parting thought, Michael Letts.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, go right ahead.
What is your parting thought?
Oh my! Okay, I thought you were going to give me your parting thought.
I've shared plenty of mine.
Let me tell you, my parting thought is this, folks. We had a great opportunity and a great victory in November, the election, but that was the start, not the end. If we are to restore America to its greatness once again, we have to recognize, first of all, where that opportunity came from. It came from God and God alone. Second of all, if we don't step up to the plate, and I'm talking first of all to our churches and to our leadership in our churches, if we don't start preaching the truth, all of the truth, and repenting, then this opportunity will slip by and judgment will be even swifter than it was coming before. But thirdly, I would ask for the American people in recognition of the greatness that God has given for the days ahead. Let's stand united, shoulder to shoulder. Don't allow the opposition to divide us and to create internal conflict over race and other things. When together we can share the principles and values that made this country great, restore it back to its greatness, not because of who we are, but because of the values and principles that we know work. They've worked for 250 years. It's time we return to them and get them to work again. So we have a great opportunity in the days ahead, but only will work if we all recognize together that it is the beginning, not the end. No longer are we going to say, well, it's up to the government now. I've done my job. Don't let me talk to me anymore about politics for the next 4 years. No, we all must decide that daily we're going to be involved in our communities and in our government, and we're going to see to it that we leave a better generation and a better society than the one we've had before for our future grandchildren and children as we have them today. So, folks, we're excited, be hopeful, but also be aware that now is your time to leave an impact in history. We had what we call was the greatest generation of World War II, but truly the greatest generation is the one that's coming ahead who will take this once again God-given opportunity and bring it to fruition of really restoring freedom and liberty and justice for all. God bless you. Thank you, John, for allowing yourself to be used to provide out the truth, because it is truly the truth that will make us free. God bless you. God bless America. Together, we're going to have great days ahead if we'll all do our share.
Michael Letts of Invest USA. That's INVESTUSA.org. Folks, go to investusa.org and donate today. Please do that. God bless you, brother. Thank you for being here. And tell your lovely wife I said hello. Boy, you two look so. They sent me some pictures of them with Kash Patel and Sebastian Gorka and a few Tom
Harmon
and
again.
And I forgot the other one, but you two look sharp. You look good. You're a good-looking couple. So tell your wife.
Well, it was a great privilege to be there with his appointees and, provide direction for the days ahead. That's why I'm so confident in John. We can succeed together. We've got a great team. And you're part of that team, whether you realize or not. God bless you for it.
Thank you, my friend. Well, folks, this has been Talk with John here on KMMU, Main Street Media. You can go to our website at kmmu.org. You can also catch us live on Rumble, X, and YouTube. Michael Letts, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back again here very soon. Like I said, in general, the first Tuesday of every month is yours. Every once in a while, the powers that be might change things, but in general, going forward, that's the way it's going to be. Unless you get appointed to some position, you can't be here every Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, put it this way, we're going to make it a point, regardless of that. We're going to make a point to be with you because, John, once again, you provide the venue for people to know what's going on. And there's going to be a lot going on in the next 4 years.
Okay. Take care, brother. God bless you.
Thank you.
See you,
God
my
bless
friend.
America. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas, my friend. And tell your wife Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from us.